Hi guys, it's Smith the Mister. It's the 4th of February 2020 and yeah, found out some more information that I thought you guys should know. As I said from the beginning, I thought this was political, Agenda 21 related, and I've come to the conclusion that it is a targeted ethnic bioweapon, and I now have irrefutable proof from many different sources that I'm going to share with you. At the minute, it's 20,701 confirmed cases globally, 427 deaths, 727 recovered. As you can see from the list on the left hand side of the page there, the majority of are of Asian descent. That can't be denied. Right, let me show you something. This was on Wikipedia. Ethnic bioweapon. An ethnic bioweapon, biogenetic weapon, is a type of theoretical bioweapon that aims to harm only or primarily people or specific ethnicities or genotypes. So I did some digging and came across a PDF from the 1970s. Let me show you this. Military Review, November 1970, Ethnic Weapons article, Rare Specific Biological Weapons. U.S. Army Command and General Staff College, Fort Leavenworth, Kansas. Ethnic Weapons, Central Highlands, Assault Capabilities, November 1970. Ethnic Weapons, Carl A. Larson. A new generation of chemical weapons seems to be growing out of information collected and interpreted in research centres in both East and West. So far, chemical agents are being considered effective mainly against tactical targets of limited area. Even if this view may still be maintained, a new edge can be honed to an already formidable weapon. Guys. This is 1970. Forthcoming chemical agents with selective man-stopping power will put into the hands of an assailant a weapon with which he cannot be attacked. At the bottom of this new reasoning lies a careful exploration of the reaction of individual soldiers to chemical agents, tactical consequences of the wide variation of such reactions involve both target analysis and the selection of personnel for specific missions. With or without exposure to toxic products, most molecules of the human organism keep to their ordinary tasks of maintaining structure. A fairly great number of molecules are held in reserve against predicted needs, but a fatal chaos would result if too many molecules were ready to react with each other. Our energy requirements are satisfied by the transformation of molecules capable of releasing energy into other molecules with less energy content. But every transformation, whether it takes place in a gun chamber or a muscle, calls for the supply of activation energy. Right guys, I'm going to leave this here and skip to 8 and 9 because they're relevant to what we've been talking about. I mean the whole thing is, but I just want to get on with this bit. I will put the link for the PDF in the comments. Right, start there. Biochemical differences. With World War I came the first impetus to the new approach, blood group frequencies. In Allied armies, being found to vary considerably among personnel of different geographic origin. Next, blood groups were used to map the world population. In Central Asia, the B gene frequency, excuse me guys, the B gene frequency comes near 30%. In American Indians, this gene is originally absent. When new blood group systems were discovered, European, Asian and African populations could be characterized by the number of independently varying gene frequencies. Widely used in such studies of human populations is the ability to taste diluted solutions of phenylephrine. Persons who carry a variant of the taster gene on both of the critical chromosomes are non-tasters. If somebody were to dissolve a sufficient amount of phenylephrine in the drinking water in Maha, India, 54% of all water drinkers would complain of a bitter taste. Among Brazilians, Indians, an identical experience would make little more than 1% aware of the admixture. Several other biochemical differences between human beings have been studied with an increasing awareness that some of these differences may be adaptive. When a simply inherited variant of the red colouring matter of blood, practically absent in Europe, was observed to be common in a broad belt across Central Africa, it was brought into relation with the high incidence of malaria in these regions. Carriers of the changed gene have an increased chance of becoming grandparents, in spite of the high mortality among their children, where the abnormal gene in the duplex state is a merciless killer. The cause is the greater resistance to malaria granted by a single gene for the deviant pigment. In the Mediterranean region, similar situations include variants of blood pigment and also an enzyme defect significantly common in old malaria regions. Enzymatic reactions. In the present decade, knowledge about enzyme polymorphisms has accumulated. If a defiant gene is too common in a given population to remain prevalent only through new mutations, it has the polymorphic distribution. More often than not, the selective forces balancing such relatively high frequencies of substandard gene are completely unknown. The chance observation of a reaction to a certain drug is obviously just a shadow on the wall. The real item has to be searched for among entangled molecular supply lines in living organisms. Clearly, a relative advantage in one environment granted carriers of mutant gene can be entirely void in another environment. But the decisive environmental factors of selection can hardly be succinylmethanonium drugs, sulfonamides, or BZ-type chemical agents. Careful analysis of enzymatic reaction patterns to a series of drugs are underway. Just remember guys, this is 1970, and we may soon have a grid where new observations of this kind can be pinpointed. One set of reference lines in this grid goes from genes necessary for enzyme production, another set of lines marks substances turning on and off and making of active enzymes which can, but need not, be alerted. Recently, a series of widely debated observations have revealed an enzyme deficiency in southeastern Asian populations. This is the kicker, making them susceptible to a poison to which corticoids are largely adapted. In such situations, the sketchy grid just mentioned is of some use. One looks for the possibility of the poison-provoking enzyme production, an individual adaptation observed in several instances. The poison now at issue is milk. In Europeans, intolerance to lactose, milk sugar, occurs as a rare recessive trait. Healthy parents, each carrying a single mutant gene, have children, approximately 1/4 of whom react to milk ingestion with diarrhea, vomiting, malabsorption, and even death. When reports on milk intolerance in various groups of non-Europeans began to accumulate, it was remembered that malnourished children in East Africa got diarrhea when treated with dried skim milk. Then the enzyme lactase was found to lose its activity in the intestinal mucosa of the African infants over the first 4 years. New reports on milk intolerance in Chinese, Filipinos and Indians were met with skepticism, in that the groups studied might not be representative of their peoples. A study reported from the Chiang Mai University in Thailand has, however, revealed a widespread lactose intolerance in adults in northern Thailand. Lactose activity getting lost between the first and fourth years of life. By inference, it has been found likely that Southeast Asians in general are deficient in lactase production. Rapid and slow inactivators. Similar observations of geographically distinct enzyme differences are to be expected. Among the obviously inherited differences in enzymatic response to chemical agents, acetylation is marked by a clear separation of people in two groups. Originally, one group was characterized as composed of rapid inactivators of isoniazid, a drug used against tuberculosis. The other group of slow inactivators carries an alternative gene less efficient in converting acylate Europeans, as well as Americans of African descent, have among their numbers about 50% slow inactivators. Eskimos and Japanese have approximately 10% slow inactivators. The method of acetylation to inactivate a molecule is not confined to isoniazid. People belonging to the two acetylator classes revealed differences in handling a number of other drugs, including enzyme inhibitors acting upon the central nervous system, although the study of drug metabolizing enzymes is only the beginning. Observed variation in drug response have pointed to the possibility of great innate differences in vulnerability to chemical agents between different populations. A series of enzyme inhibitors are chemically active substances interfering with signal transmission in the brain and spinal cord have been intentionally studied since the early 50s. Many of these substances have a colourful prehistory saturated with tribal sorcery. The incapacitant known as BZ derives from a drug which before its present renaissance as a lysergic acid, diethylamide, LSD, caused epidemic outbursts of St. Anthony's fire in the Dark Ages. With ditron-like compounds, BZ shares the capacity to produce transient toxic psychosis, sometimes compared to schizophrenia. Right guys, like I say, I'm going to put the links in there for that. This is from 1999. Germ warfare could target ethnic groups. This is from The Independent, a UK newspaper. I mean, that's just mind-blowing what I've just read there. And then skip forward 29 years. Genetically engineered biological weapons capable of targeting particular ethnic groups could become a reality within 10 years. And here we are. An expert panel warned yesterday. Viruses and other microorganisms tailored to detect the differences in the DNA of races could offer war makers and terrorists of the future a new means to carry out ethnic cleansing, said the panel convened by the BMA, British Medical Association. Yet the scientific advances that would make such weapons possible will be a spin-off of two areas of medicine with potentially huge benefits. The first is Human Genome Project, which aims to unravel the 100,000 or so genes in human DNA by 2003. The other is nascent technology of gene therapy, which tries to repair defective genes in the body. Launching a book entitled Biotechnology, Weapons and Humanity, members of the panel insisted yesterday that they were not scaremongering. We went into this being very sceptical, with a position that it can't be done, said Professor Vivian Nathanson, the BMA's Head of Health Policy and Research. But then after examining what is going on, we decided that it might be possible after all. Right guys, yeah, I just wanted to share that craziness with you. This is what I thought it was. I hope you guys, I've got well more stuff to come, just keep posted. God bless, I'll speak to you all soon.